I told them so. I told them so. The bunch of fools. But no, they only drowned out my words. Because I was smaller. Because I was weaker. Bunch of fools they all were. I was the strong one. I was the bigger one. I was smarter than they will ever be. I had ways to survive. But did they listen? No. Of course they didn't. Just run off to hunt pigs and, oh, we need meat, we need meat. Ralph is the only one that I pity. God bless the boy, the only one that understood the importance of rules. I shall look out for him, as he once tried to do for me. The rest of them, oh, just wait until the grown-ups get a load of them, the lives of pain and regret that they will have. I would rather be dead than live through that. I would rather be dead. But serves them right for just laughing. I told them there was no fear unless we were afraid of each other. And they just laughed and they mocked, and look at them now. They're not just afraid of people, they're afraid of themselves. Okay, so the character that I chose to make a mask about is Piggy. There's a lot going on with Piggy. So for him, there's a lot to include, or that could have been included in his mask. This is my interpretation, and I'm going to share with you what I chose to include. Okay, so first off, why is the mask pink? Well, okay, his name, Piggy. Pigs are pink, yeah. That's one pretty obvious way of looking at it. And also just a short comment about his name. Golding uses it kind of in an interesting way to foreshadow the fact that the boys are hunting pigs and not something else like deers or chickens. Foreshadows that Piggy will probably end up dead at the end of the book, at fault of the boys. So that's something interesting about his name. Also, by naming him Piggy and never revealing what his real name is, it's sort of impersonal in that way, and a little bit ironic that Piggy cares so much about all the other boys' names. Like when we know that because at the beginning of the chapter, of chapter 1, I think, when the boys are all being gathered by Ralph after he calls them with a shell, Piggy is so adamant to learn all of their names. Yet no one ever asks for Piggy's real name. So it's a bit sad in that way as well. Okay, so the pink can also represent how Piggy is sort of the only female voice. He's the voice of reason, for sure, and he's definitely rational. And some would say that that's the definition of a female voice. Okay, so moving on. What are these black circles all around the mask? Well, if we look closely, they're actually made up of words, and they are actually quotes by Piggy, quotes about Piggy, and there's a few quotes by Ralph in here as well. Okay, so why did I choose to include these quotes? Well, there's one on here that actually isn't in the book, but it could help explain. So, and it's one that I think Piggy would agree with. So, man is least himself when he talks in his own person. Give him a mask, and he will tell you the truth. So, the reason that I think Piggy would agree with this is because Piggy was far more mature than any of the other boys were, in the way that he thought. And he actually saw this happen. He could see this coming before he warned the boys, actually. There's a quote on here as well about fearing each other. Piggy said that there was no fear on the island until they started to get frightened of people. Which is actually so wise and so mature, especially for his age, which is interesting. But the words that Piggy spoke were so a part of him, and probably his strongest characteristic, which is why I included so many. Alright, but then why are they in circles? Well, circles actually represent protection, and Piggy, we can assume that he was pampered. He was an orphan, he tells us in the beginning of the book, and for the amount of times that he references his auntie, it's pretty clear that she did her best to keep him sheltered. Right here is a quote that can represent the rationality of Piggy. He's reminding Ralph not to get distracted and to stay focused on the important things. Why are there multiple circles of the quotes? Why is it like that? Well, I did it like this because I felt that the multiple circles could represent how his words were sort of disregarded. It was sort of like it was just in one ear and out the other for all the boys. They sort of just flushed his words down the toilet in spirals, which is kind of the effect that I was wanting to get. In many of his speakings, he had to, quote, hastily go on, as the boys had already started to lose interest and start to laugh and not take him seriously and such. So even though he had great things to say, it's because of his traits that aren't necessarily one of a leader. His words so often got disregarded, and I want to portray that in the mask. Okay, speaking about not necessarily being a leader, well, these are what these feathers, actually, if you can see what these represent. I chose to put them on there because actually based off of the saying, too many chiefs and not enough Indians. Well, in this case, yeah, Ralph literally calls himself a chief. So there's that. But then Piggy, he actually thinks like a chief. He could be a chief, but he doesn't have the means, doesn't have the build, he doesn't have the, I guess, strength or physical characteristics to be one, whereas Ralph does, and like Jack does. There's actually a quote on here that represents that by Ralph. The trouble was, if you were a chief, you had to be wise. Piggy could think. Only Piggy was no chief. But Piggy, for his ludicrous body, had brains. See, so here even Ralph admits that Piggy would probably be a better chief. It's just his inability to organize the crowd of rowdy boys is what prevents him from doing that. Okay, so what is this thing in the middle? Well, this is actually a plant. It's called the obedience plant. And why I chose to include it, or first off, why is the plant called the obedience plant? Well, the plant's got its name because you can bend it and twist it any way you like, and it'd stay in that form. So that's how it's got its name. And why did I choose to include it? Well, I chose to include it as a symbol of order and rules, which was so a part of Piggy. Piggy was so adamant about maintaining order on the island. So he needs the crowd of rowdy boys to listen to the order and the rules. Otherwise, he would be teased and ridiculed. So if you look closely here, you can see that I shaped some of the quotes in the form of his glasses. And his glasses are a must to include, because yes, they represent how wise he was, but they also represent his insecurity. And his glasses were so much a part of him, I couldn't leave them out.